Hello, Joe Markowitz with today's Liberty Dispatch. Well, reflecting on my last Liberty Dispatch, which really went through a highlight of a very massive 800-page bill proposed by the Democrats and passed in the House, now going to the Senate, all uh, about overhauling our elections, basically federalizing all of our local elections and really transforming our elections, which I think, if you look at the features of it, check out my last Liberty Dispatch, that this is a very dangerous bill. Every American who believes in free, fair, and legitimate elections should be very concerned about H.R. 1, called by the Democrats, who basically run the House and run the Senate, the For the People Act. I still maintain that I should call it, or we should call it, For the Corrupt Swamp Act. Very dangerous. Go check out some of the lively comments if you want to see my Instagram, IGTV, my Instagram page, and go check that out. Okay, so here it is. This Liberty Dispatch, I'm going to call it spending porn. Now, I'm going to steal that from Senator Kennedy out of Louisiana. I just love some of his comments. I've stolen that quote from him because this COVID bill, which I spoke about 2 Liberty Dispatches ago, it has passed the House and now it has passed the Senate. Now, let me just tell you this. These bills, especially a $1.9 trillion, that's right, 1.9 trillion with a T bill, a massive pork-filled special interest bill, which has very little to do with the COVID emergency. This was not passed the way most resolutions are passed, which would require 60 votes, 60 in the Senate. No. Democrats used a technique called reconciliation, so all they needed is a simple majority. And this should concern all Americans. They have basically, it's a 50-50 split, Republicans, Democrats, Republicans. However, the Democrats are in power in the Senate because they have Kamala Harris as the vice president, and she can cast a tie vote. You know, if there is a tie, which there was going to be, every Democrat was going to vote for this massive pork-laden special interest bill. The Democrats knew it. They had 50 votes, and the best they can get out of Republicans is 50 votes, and then Kamala Harris is going to pass the tie vote, and they have it. I want to comment on this a little bit now. This is going to Biden's desk, and they will pass it. And every American who is concerned about our financial stability, our solvency, our debt, should be very concerned about this. I already talked a lot about what's in the bill a couple of Liberty Dispatches ago, and so here you go. I'm going to give you the highlights, and I believe in informing people. This, by the way, is the sixth COVID bill ever since this pandemic broke out. And as Senator Kennedy, which I like watching him, and I study how he looks at things in a very rational, common sense way from Louisiana. You know, he said, look, this is the sixth COVID bill. There's no lack of compassion or lack of initiative by senators to try to help out people who have been crushed in this economy by all the lockdowns and with schools, jobs, businesses. There's no lack of compassion. It's just different perspectives on how Senate, the Senate and government feels their role should be in assisting. And so the first five, just so you know, which added up to over $4 trillion of spending, which, by the way, we don't have any of it. We don't have any of this. We had to borrow it all. The previous five, this was the difference between the previous five and this one. The previous five at least had bipartisan involvement. The six had zero, none. And I mean none. It was a take it or leave it. It was a power play, and this is pure politics. So this is all about this is about now putting an enormous burden on our children and our children's children. We can't pay for this. We have to borrow it 100%. And so moving on down. This one is also very different. Remember how Biden and his limited campaigning, he was saying he's the rational guy. He's the guy that would work across the aisle, unlike Donald Trump, you know, the mean guy. That Biden was going to be the one to unify America, work across the aisle, try to get bipartisan involvement on his bills. Remember that? Remember that? Even my, and I know that I have people in here who don't exactly believe like I do, and you're from the other side, and you love trolling my stuff. No problem. You know, let's have some civil discourse. But you know your guy talked about we're going to unify America. I'm the guy to do it. Well, I have seen zero attempt to unify America, and 1.9 trillion, 1.9 trillion. I'm not going to go through the list of all the crap that's in this thing. Go check out my Liberty Dispatch a couple of times ago. But remember, it was Biden, candidate Biden, and in the last 6 weeks, whenever he was on camera, and it's been pretty limited, he was going to be the one to work with both sides of the aisle. And I say baloney. I'd like to say more than that, but anyway. On this bill, there was zero effort to negotiate or work across party lines for the sake of what's best for the American people. Shouldn't Congress, both sides of the aisle, have some compassion for American people and do what's best, and then also work with their colleagues on the other side of the aisle? But there was zero amount of that. So the procedure that they used to be able to just use a simple majority was called reconciliation. That's how they do it. And the last time that reconciliation was used in the Senate is, yes, when Republicans were in power. That was for the Tax Cut and Jobs Act a few years ago, and which ignited an enormous amount of prosperity and economic growth. That was actually done by reconciliation, also using a technique to be able to bypass the 60 vote threshold and only needed majority. So I know that my friends on the other side, people that don't agree with me, are saying, see, you guys are a bunch of hypocrites. But even back then, Republicans, when they were in majority, they went and approached the minority party and said, hey, come and work with us. Come and work with us on this bill. And they flat out said, we don't want anything to do with it. Our constituents don't want anything to do with it. And if we get caught talking to you about tax cuts, they will roast us back, our constituents back at home, our base. So they never even wanted to. In this bill that just passed, $1.9 trillion, the conservatives and Republicans never even got an invitation. It was a take it or leave it. This is it. And it was a pure political power play. And let me just wrap this up. The reason why every American should be concerned about this $1.9 trillion pork-filled turd spending bill is this has nothing to do with an emergency. Nothing to do with it. The COVID emergency. Why do I say that? Is because there's still, of that $4 trillion and those other 5 bills, those bipartisan bills, there's still $4 trillion left, or $4 trillion in those. There's still $1 trillion left that hasn't even been spent yet. By the way, this is going to push the national debt up to approximately $29 trillion. And I say that this has nothing to do with the immediate crisis of COVID and the pandemic and lockdowns and opening up schools and creating jobs and helping people and opening up business. It has very little of it. I mean, talk to me. Prove me wrong. Yes, there are certain people that are being helped in this. But across the board, most of this money, a lot of this money is not even going to be spent until 2022 and even 2024. It is just a bunch of special interest money that is being put in this bill, and it stinks. And why do I say that? Why is there money? This is not some emergency bill. This is an enormous amount of money being spent on what? Pension plans, $160 billion to elementary and secondary institutions of learning. But they've already got $70 billion from those previous bills, and they've only spent $4 billion of it. Why do they need another $160 billion? Why? Where's the fiscal discipline? Where's some common sense in this? Why not just open the schools? I'm throwing that in there. Why not just open the schools? The kids are getting crushed. Let's move on. In this $1.9 trillion bill, there is money going to illegal aliens. They're not even citizens. Our citizens are being crushed. But stimulus checks are being sent to illegal aliens and felons. That's right. That is true. And show me where I'm wrong in this. The Boston bomber is going to get a $1,400 COVID stimulus check. He's in federal prison today. How about Dylan Bundy, mass murderer? $1,400 stimulus check. Yeah. Where does that make sense? COVID emergency relief. Baloney. This puts another $5,750 of debt on every U.S. American. Every American, on top of what every American owed before. So this is never about getting people back to work or helping businesses recover or putting children back in school. Never been. This is a liberal fantasy. I'm commenting on this not because I want to talk about politics. I want to talk about common sense and keeping the sovereignty of our country, of our democratic republic. And again, that's why I call this thing spending porn. Why is government doing this, you may ask? Because they can. We can't. We have no money left. This is all borrowing and imprinting money. And this should concern every American. There's no restraint, no bipartisanship. It's all about elections, and it's all about power. It's all about creating dependency. This is the objective. It's not about self-determination and freedom and independence and giving people the tools to take care of their own families and to recover from this thing. This is all about creating more dependence. And I'm just going to say this. The federal government cannot be, it can't be repaired. Not at the federal level. It's got to be repaired locally. It's got to be repaired through local elections and you and I and the citizens becoming more and more informed, and we start caring. So that is today's Liberty Dispatch. It's called Spending Porn. This is Joe Markowitz. Until next time, keep the faith, brothers and sisters.